Welcome to the Books on Air podcast. I'm Suzanne Harris, and my listeners get the story behind every book. Joining me today is a fascinating woman. Her name is Karen Lee, and she's here to talk about her how-to book, Secret Healer's Business, how to develop your skills, work with clients, and build a successful healing business. Now, Karen is an intuitive healer, a spiritual teacher, a theta healing instructor, an author, and a speaker, as well as a voice for healers and soul-based entrepreneurs. She's trained in many healing modalities, spiritual and personal development practices for over 39 years. And when you see her picture on her website, you will not believe it. I think they have the Fountain of Youth in Australia. She's also developed her own powerful healing style, and she's a popular speaker, and she's so much fun to talk to. Karen, welcome.
Thank you so much, Suzanne. Lovely to be here.
Well, this is such an interesting book, and I'm really curious. You know, books have two stories. They have the story that the author writes for the reader, and as the reader goes through the book and reads the book, that story unfolds. But there's always a story behind the book. I'm always curious about why an author decided to write this book at this time. So how did Secret Healer's Business come to be written right now?
I think it was really just part of my own journey that I was going through at the time, because I actually wrote it about 4 years ago, and I was doing a lot of psychic expos. I was working with a lot of clients as well, and really just going through that process of building my business, something that I'd started, 10 years earlier. And I was meeting a lot of people that, wanted to live their passion. They wanted to do what they loved, and quite often that was healing or some sort of service-based industry. And they would ask me, how did you get here? And what did you do? How did you get clients? How do you deal with this? And because I was teaching classes and that sort of thing at the time, I thought, why don't I, write this down? I'm getting all these questions. I have a lot of information that I've gathered from, these years of doing work, and I always have plenty to say. So I just started asking the questions. What question did I have when I started? What did I want to know when I got started? And I just started with those questions, and I just wrote down my feelings and thoughts and experiences on those different topics, and then just eventually it sort of came into a book. So, then it was a matter of what do I keep in, what needs to come out, and just that sort of editing process. But I hope that I've created something that is valuable to people that are on that journey of wanting to become a healer, starting to put themselves out there and, make a difference in the world, basically.
Does someone know that they just have the gift of being a healer, or is that something they can develop?
Definitely something they can develop. My belief on that is that anyone can do this, absolutely anyone. But some people are more aligned with it. Some people are more drawn to it. My dad, for example, is the last person on earth that would have anything to do with healing. But it doesn't mean he doesn't have the ability to do it. But it's just it's not how he rolls. He's more interested in other things. So I say to people, if you have the desire to be a healer and the determination to follow through, then you can absolutely do that. No problem at all.
The book is so comprehensive. I really liked it. I started reading through it. I looked at everything. Let's talk about the book, and let's give the listeners an overview of the book, because you've got 4 sections and then you've got a series of exercises.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about part 1, the world of energy healing. What is energy healing, first of all?
Well, energy healing is really everything's energy. And from my perspective, if everything is energy, and we're told this by quantum physicists and scientists, that everything's energy, all the little atoms and molecules and electrons and everything is energy. So if everything is energy, then energy can be changed. We can change our reality. And as an energy healer, I just do that through the medium of connecting to someone and then visualizing or witnessing those changes taking place in the body. So there are different ways that people go about energy healing. Some people will work with the meridians of the body or the muscle testing or there's all different modalities out there, but basically it's all a way of clearing or shifting or transforming energy in the body in some way. And I think it's a beautiful way to complement Western medicine, because if you have one without the other, you have an imbalance. But people heal all different ways. No one thing's always going to work for everyone. So if we have that nice balance between Western medicine and the energy healing and the alternative methods, then I think we have a really balanced health system.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there's room for all kinds of healing. And I think the world right now is so damaged that people are really looking and searching for something, and they may not really know what they're looking for. But I think they should open their minds to not just Western medicine, but there are so many other things that make a difference for our bodies because, as you said, everything is energy. You also talk about developing your skills if you want to be a healer. How could you do that? Are there courses? Are there places to study? How does that work?
This is one of my favourite parts of the book because I love teaching people how to develop those skills and abilities. In the past, I've done that through developing intuition classes. I do it more now through actually teaching theta healing because that is one of the best ways to learn how to develop your skills, whether or not you're going to be a healer, just to learn to tap into energy and develop your intuition. But of course, there's many other ways. For many years, I was a professional tarot reader. That really helped me develop my skills. And I think the thing that I would like to convey to people on this is that there's so many people out there that feel that they're not insured enough. Like, I want to be a healer, but I don't think I'm psychic enough, or, all of these fears and doubts. And I was exactly the same. If you think back almost 40 years ago to where my journey started, I was the same. I felt I had no talent, no ability, but I just that desire to do it and to learn more about it. And I developed the skills that I have today that people quite often say, wow, how did you know that? How did you know that? Well, it's a skill that I developed. And so I totally believe that, yes, there are some people more born with this skill more developed, and then there are others who learn and develop that as they go along because it's innate with all of us. Anyone can do it. So, yes, get in and do some courses and play with tarot cards and speak to people and do a theta healing training or something like that, and just do everything you can to really keep practicing and developing those skills.
And be open yourself so that you can really discover what path you should travel.
Absolutely. And, of course, read the book. There's some great tips in there as well.
I know. And the part 3 and 4, I really like that you did this because you're talking about work. You're talking about the actual core of the business. Part 3, you talk about clients, and part 4, you talk about building your business. And I thought that it was so important that you put that in the book because I think that's the part that would be the most difficult.
Yeah, and I think that I found that was one of the things that was missing from healing training courses. And not that they necessarily had that, because when you do learning a specific modality, you're there to learn the modality. And there's not always time to go into the deeper intricacies of being a healer, which is why I created the book and also the program or the masterclass that comes from the book, because what do you do after you've learned the modality? What do you do when you're working with clients and, for example, booking clients? What if you have a lot of people cancelling? What if you, how do you get clients in the first place? All that sort of thing. And how do you, what's your duty of care with your clients? How do you need to show up? How do you need to treat them? So I felt that was kind of missing in a lot of the books that I read. So I wanted to include that. And also on the business side of things, I don't think I've ever seen a book about healing that really talks much about the business side of things. So that was imperative to me because I met so many healers who were happy to share their time and do a lot for people to be of service to others, but they were unwilling to actually receive for that. And in fact, we're often taught it's wrong to receive money for healing. It's a gift, it should be given. And I don't agree with that because I think we all have gifts no matter what they are, whether we shine shoes or do brain surgery or clean toilets. We all have something to offer, something that has value, and we still need to live in this physical world. So we need to be compensated for that.
I agree. Yes, I agree. Because you can't have a business if you don't have, there has to be money. There has to be a financial component. And I thought it was so important that you address that. And I couldn't agree with you more. I think that, on the perhaps esoteric side, it's fine to say that you shouldn't be paid for healing, but we all have bills and we all have mortgages and car payments and kids that need food and all of those kinds of things. And so even though you may be doing something you love, and in theory you shouldn't charge for it, in the real world, that's not going to work because
not practical.
No, it's not practical. Thank you. Another thing that I found so interesting, and I was real curious about this, I love the exercise portion. I looked at all of those and I read through those, and I was curious to see if they were for the person who is going to be the healer. Were these exercises that they do with the clients? Were these client exercises? Tell me about those exercises because there are lots of them.
Yeah, I wanted to make this book really hands-on so that people could get information. So there's that how-to aspect, but there is also some of my stories woven through so that it had an interesting and practical component to it as well. But with the exercises, I wanted people, instead of just reading about how to do something, hey, let's get into an experience of this. Let's feel what that's like, or let's have something you can actually go out and do or practice or play with. So yeah, it's definitely for the healer, the person wanting to be a healer, but it's also something that they could teach to others. These are some of them things that I sort of came up with on my own, but some of them are things that I've learned from my teachers and maybe tweaked or changed a little bit along the way. But, there's some great things that people can do to keep developing those abilities.
I like the Discover Your Strengths exercise and awareness visualization. And then one that caught my attention was the client booking exercise.
Yeah.
Tell me a little about that one.
That actually came from a friend of mine who, she's not a healer, but she's in a service-based field. And she told me, how, and she had an established practice. And she was telling me about how she, sort of got started and how she managed her clients and that. And she had very strict guidelines. And I really admired that because my guidelines and boundaries were a little bit wobbly at the time. I was just sort of like, yes, anyone want a healing? Yes, I'm there sort of thing. And she just had really, office hours 9 to 5. That's it. So I learned a lot from her. But one of the things she said in the beginning was I used to practice saying what I charged people. And so I just made an exercise out of that. And I practiced that myself, like just getting used to, someone saying to you, what do you charge? And then saying what you charge with confidence, because so many people diminish what they do. They diminish their own value and they feel guilty about putting a price on it. So I think it's really important just to get used to saying it. So, and even get used to saying what you do. You know, I'm an energy healer. I help people with, you know, whatever it is. Get used to talking about it. And, you know, as it says, I think in that exercise, you know, practice saying it aloud, walk around your house and say it, so that you're used to hearing it, so that when you actually do say it to someone, it doesn't feel so weird or alien to you, you know.
That is fabulous advice. I have to. We didn't really talk about this before you and I got on our recording, but this is one job that I do, but I do another job as well. I'm a custom curriculum writer, and I'm a corporate presenter. And so when I first started doing this, that was the struggle for me. How do you price your time? How do you say to somebody, you know, this is what I charge? I've gotten over that, by the way, but yeah. I couldn't agree with you more. That is very, very difficult. And having an exercise in the book for that, I think, is really, really valuable. We've been talking about the book. Now, I know that there's a part of the book you'd like to share with the listeners. Let's go ahead and do that now, Karen.
Okay, beautiful. So this is from page 49, and the heading is Fear of Judgment. As you embark on your career as a healer, you may be worried about how you'll be perceived by others in the industry. This, too, is a common concern, and one that I had when I first started working at local psychic expos. The way I dealt with it was to ensure my stall was always set up early, so I could go around and introduce myself to a few other readers, healers and stall holders at each event. I'd say hello and ask what they were doing. This helped overcome fears about being new, and soon I began to feel like part of the community. Even more valuable was what I learned through these connections and conversations. Prior to working at expos, I'd placed healers, psychics and tarot readers on a pedestal. I thought they were the chosen ones who were somehow more special than me because I thought I had no talent. I was a fraud and I probably shouldn't have been there anyway. They were just a few of my limiting beliefs. I'm sure many of you can relate. What I learned to my surprise was that they were everyday people just like me. Many had regular jobs during the week. They had fears and doubts like everyone else, and they often felt like they didn't fit in. The pedestal came crashing down as one after another shared about a difficult client, concerns about a reading they'd done, or conveyed doubt about an aspect of the work they were doing or the struggles they faced. And these conversations humanized the industry for me. The point is we all start somewhere, and it's okay to feel a little out of your depth at first. Over time, you'll gain confidence, and the rewards that come from mastering each part of your journey will be beyond anything you can imagine. It may not be your style to attend expos and events, but whatever you choose, go forth with courage. Be willing to receive judgment because people will judge you anyway, and who really cares what they think? If you don't resist it, you'll set yourself free. Because ultimately it's just someone else's point of view based on their limiting beliefs. What matters is that you are true to yourself and you follow your dreams.
That is absolutely fabulous advice for anyone. For anyone, Karen, not just someone who's going to be a healer, but think about what you just said. You really talked about limiting beliefs. We all have those. We all have our self-doubts. We all do the negative self-talk with ourselves. We all have people that we look at and think, oh, she is really something. They must be blah, blah, blah. We all make up stories for other people based on nothing more than what we think, our perspective. We really don't know the inside track. So, wow, that's great advice. I'm so glad you read that part. Now, let's let the listeners know where the book is available, because I know we've piqued everyone's interest. It is on Amazon, and let me give you the information to find it on Amazon. Now, if you've never used Amazon before, all you do is put the word Amazon in your search feature and click on it. I mean, I think computers just automatically know where it is because it'll just go to Amazon very quickly. The title of Karen's book is Secret Healer's Business. Then there's a colon. and there's a secondary part. But I think if you just put in Secret Healer's Business, you'll be fine. But the second part is how to develop your skills, work with clients, and build a successful healing business by Keryn, Keryn Lee, Lee. If you click on that, the book comes right up. And in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see two words. If you look for them on the representation of the cover, it says look inside. If you put your cursor on those two words and just click on them, the book will electronically open. And you'll be able to see the table of contents, and there's an excerpt from the book that you can read. Now, you can also order it right there on that page. And I know that some of our listeners, Keryn, let's face it, Amazon is such a big corporation. Some people don't like to support big corporations, and they want to buy the books somewhere else. Can they find the book somewhere else?
Absolutely. If you go to my website, secrethealersbusiness.com, there are numerous options on there. It's available through Book Depository and I think Barnes & Noble, many others. It's an ebook version and physical versions. And also, if they're in Australia, you can click on that website and actually I'll sign a copy for you and we'll deliver it. There'll be a postage charge, etc., depending on where you are. But you can actually get a signed copy of the book at the moment as well. So that's another option.
That's lovely. I'm glad you're doing that. Let's talk about your website. Let's give that website address.
So secrethealersbusiness.com is where you'll find the book and information about the class, the master class that's related to the book as well.
And you're also doing some workshops. Tell me a little bit about the workshops.
Yeah, so that's the Secret Healers Business Masterclass or workshop. So it's a 2-day workshop. It is now online. It has previously been in person, but I'm now running it all online. And we just dive into aspects of the book that we just expand more on them. There's different exercises we do. It's really, it also gives the people a chance for people to talk about where they're at, where they're stuck, where they're struggling. We do a lot of energy clearing. I use some theta healing techniques, etc., to help shift energy. And we just do a deep dive into aspects of your healing business, what you want to create. And also just to mention, I've had people do this class that don't want to be healers. They've come in because they've done other classes with me and they know my work and they just, were interested, but said they got a lot out of it because, as you said about the excerpt that I read, this is not just for healers, although it definitely has that main component, but other people can get a lot out of this work as well.
I thought that as well. Yeah, exactly. And it occurred to me that you're really expanding yourself into the world now by doing this online, because people who hear our podcast in other countries could join you as well, right?
Absolutely. And really, especially since the pandemic, the last couple of the years, I'm sure many business owners will tell you things have changed. There's so much more happening online at the moment. And I think it's great that we can just all connect. And, people who did not previously have access to this class now do, which is fantastic.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. Now, you're also on Facebook. Let's tell them how to find you on Facebook.
Okay, so my Facebook page will be facebook.com/Keryn Lee 08, or if you just want to pop in the search bar, it's Keryn Lee Healing.
You're also on YouTube. What will they find if they find you on YouTube?
There are quite a lot of videos on YouTube. There's some meditations, there's some healing, there's just different topics that I've talked about. There's quite a lot of stuff on YouTube, so go and check out my channel. I
have one last question, Keryn.
Mm-hmm.
I know that our listeners probably won't sit down and read the book cover to cover. This is not a book that you would necessarily do that. You would sit down and you would read part of it and then think how you were going to adapt the ideas. And you'd go through the book, but it wouldn't be just in one sitting. And then you would keep this book. And you would keep it in a handy place because there's so much good advice and so much good information, and I love the exercises. So when the person reads the book, not cover to cover, but from day to day, besides the business advice and besides talking about healing, is there a bottom line message that you would like the reader to take away from the book?
I think, as you said, it's not a book that has to be read cover to cover. You can definitely just, open it, flick to a page and, see what comes up. Whatever you need in that moment will be perfect for you. But I think overall, the message is just about, trusting yourself. If you feel that you have something that you want to share with the world, something that you feel inspired to do, something that you want to help others with, really just go for it. Because I think no matter whether it's healing or not, this book is really about encouraging, inspiring, empowering people to recognise you have the desire to do something. Start stepping towards it. Step into it. Live your dream. Don't let the fears and doubts hold you back, because if I had have done that, I'd still be back where I was 40 years ago, feeling sorry for myself because, someone didn't pick me to go into an advanced class. Whereas now, I'm in a much different position, really feeling happy and, successful with what I'm doing. And we can all do that. So, yeah, be courageous, step forward, do what you love.
I love the message from the book. You just have, it's so funny as I've heard you talk, those are thoughts that I've had in my head as well. And it's just so funny how the philosophy that you're espousing in the book just is such a positive philosophy, and it's the way I believe as well. You have to be able to believe in yourself. You have to be able to put yourself out there. And are you scared? Well, yes. I just did a session for a group of judges in a court, and doing a speaking session for someone like that is intimidating. And I thought to myself, all right, I can do this. And so I just got up there and I did it. And it makes you feel, once you accomplish something that you're a little nervous about, it really makes you feel powerful, and you really believe that in yourself, and you really believe that you can do it. And that's the message that I hear from Secret Healers Business. Even though it's geared to healers, anyone that picks this book up will find something in that book for them, and the exercises alone would be worth picking up a copy of the book. It has been delightful to have you as a guest on Books on Air. I want to thank you so much, Karen, for being here with me today.
Thank you so much, Suzanne. That was really fun and lovely to talk to you, and wonderful to be able to share that with your listeners.
I couldn't agree more. Now remember, you can find Kieran's book, Secret Healers Business, How to Develop Your Skills, Work with Clients, and Build a Successful Healing Business, by Kieran, Keryn, Lee, Lee. You've been listening to the Books on Air podcast, brought to you on webtalkradio.net. By the way, you can also hear this podcast on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and Apple Podcasts. I'm Suzanne Harris, and I hope you'll join me for our next Books on Air podcast, because remember, you never know who's going to be here, and you never know what we're going to talk about. Thank you so very much for listening.